welcome to today's video about how to harmonize a melody in the key of C major. And so we're going to be talking a bit about theory, a bit about harmony, and this is really aimed for some of my students who I've set composition tasks to. It's for people that want to improve their improvising or just compositional skills, deciding how to put chords to a melody. So the first thing we need to know really is what key we're in. So we're just going to do this in C major because it's the easiest scale. It's probably the first scale that we all learn because it's just got white notes. And we call this, any note within that, diatonic notes. So any melody note that is a white key will be diatonic to the key of C. From then, we just need to build chords. So our formula for a chord, play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note. And then we have chord 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1. We can also build a chord extension on top of that, adding the 7th, and this is what we get. Now, the chords that we're most interested in are chord 1, obviously, and we call this the tonic. The next one we're more interested in is the dominant, which is chord number 5. So if I go up to my 5th degree of the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I play that dominant chord, it will naturally want to resolve down to my tonic. So this relationship between the dominant and the tonic is a really important one, especially when we call it the dominant 7th. Here's the dominant chord, here's the 7th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you'll notice when I get from here to here, I'm not going, because that would be an example of poor voice leading. So what's happening here? If you have a look, I've got the notes of my tonic chord, C, E, and G, but I've rearranged them so that G is at the bottom, and I've still got the C, I've got the E, and the G's down here. And you can see there are fewer voices that need to move because the dominant chord has one note in common with my tonic chord, so that one can stay there. And those can move in. So those are what we call chord inversions, where we have a root chord and we just rearrange so that the notes are in a different order. Another thing to note is this relationship between dominant and tonic creates what we call a circle of fifths. So it goes 5 down to 1. This can then become a new dominant to this new tonic, which is F. That can now become a new dominant to the tonic B flat. B flat can then become a dominant to E flat. So there's this whole circle of fifths where a tonic becomes a dominant to another tonic, and that tonic can become a dominant to another tonic. Most famous examples of this probably so you can hear we go from A Now here we have a different kind of 7th, because 7th chords just add a little bit more to your harmony. Rather than just a basic triad, we can add a 7th to every chord. I don't know if that's what I mean, but anyway, without the 7ths, with the 7ths, notice here, that's quite plain. That's got a bit more to it. Same thing here, C major 7th, rather than just a plain old C major chord. Same song, not same song, different songs, same chords. So that completes the cycle. What else? So 5-1 is a really powerful harmonic concept in Western music. You might also know the term a cadence. So cadence usually points to the last 2 chords of a phrase, and a chord going from 5 to 1 signals what we call a perfect cadence. So going 5 to 1, you can hear it sounds finished, so it's perfect. It's like a full stop. In the song Happy Birthday, this is an example I always show to my students, it starts with what we call an imperfect cadence, where we go from any chord, but usually chord 1 to 5. So it's like we can't finish here. There's my dominant chord, and then we've arrived back at our tonic. We can add further tension by adding that 7th note. Okay, and then we can finish there, although we know it doesn't. So, back to harmonizing our melodies. So, here we have all of our chords, our diatonic chords in the key of C. Chord 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. So if we have these notes in our melody, and then we know the melody repeats, then we need to think, okay, what chords fit under these notes? Which are my most important notes? Is it the G? Is it the A? Or the E? So let's find out. Now, it works well with chord 1. We know we're in the key of C, so it's likely that we start with our chord 1. You'll notice G and D belong in my chord 1. So what other chords could it work in? Well, if E is my most important note, you can see this as a little passing note up, and then we arrive there. Then E also belongs in chord 3. It also belongs in chord 6. So we could harmonize it with chord 1. We could harmonize it with chord 3. Or we could harmonize it with chord 6. So I'm going to go with chord 1. Now, just to add a little something, I might not just use a basic root position triad. I might turn it into a 7th. Then it starts to get a bit congested in there. There are a few too many notes. I could probably do without the E down here, because I've already got it in the melody. Can you hear the difference? So, and then without the E, just gives it a bit more space. And then we can do the same. Maybe instead of repeating the C, I could go to an A minor. Okay, then we've got this in the melody. D, B. Doesn't feature in chord 1, doesn't feature in chord 2, 3, 4, 5 it features in. Doesn't feature in chord 6, 7 also features in chord 7. Now this is a diminished chord because it's not major, it's not minor, but each interval is the same, it's a minor third apart. We just need that to complete the diminished 7th. So it could have G underneath it, or it could have B diminished. Let's hear what both sound like. And that works perfectly well, G major chord. With the diminished, could work as well. Although that would push me to go there, and then that would push me to go from here. We have a 2-5-1, so we talk about cadence as being 5 to 1, the last two chords, but the pre-chord before that, so the 3, so if we factor in the 3 chords rather than just the 2, 2-5-1 is a very popular chord progression going. So that's what we find here. And the 7th note, it's a good bridge in between what we call the tonic and then the submediant chord 6, also known as the relative minor. So if you want to go from tonic to the submediant or the relative minor, you can go through the 2, the dominant 7th, and then resolve in your new home. Songs that do this, for example, well, it doesn't do it here. Then it uses the 2, 5 into 1, and then we've got a nice other 2-5-1. So there's the 2-5-1 into the key of F. So we've had 2 2-5-1s in a row. Etc. Or, for example, the Beatles. I'll do it in the key of C. So I've simply gone from chord 1 to chord 6, but I've gone via the 2-5-1. So there's the dominant 7. And then I have chord 4, 5, back to chord 1. So, where were we? That would be the harmonically interesting version. If I had the plain version, I could just have 5 and then to chord 1. Now, there's something to be said about how frequently I change the chords. I could have just started with chord 1 and just stayed on there, then gone to chord 5. So this is what we call harmonic rhythm. This is the rate at which the harmony changes. So this would be a slow harmonic rhythm. Because I haven't changed the harmony at all. I've just kept it with a C major chord. Now notice the way I voice that C major chord down in the bass. What you want to avoid is triads down in the lower register of any instrument really, because something to do with the frequencies, they just don't sound nice. So if you space it out, if you have the 5th and then you add the 3rd at the top, then it just sounds a lot warmer. If I wanted a more, a faster harmonic rhythm, then I would change. Now you'll notice I'm not using diatonic notes there. This is what we call chromatic notes, so notes that don't belong in the scale. So I've gone. What's the point of the B flat here? Do I really need it? Well, if we look what chord comes next, we've got an F major chord. So let's find out what the dominant 7th in the key of F is. So in my F major scale, I've got a B flat. So chord 1, chord chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5. There we go, C, E, G, B flat. That's the reason. So that is the dominant 7th, resolving to the tonic of F major. So and then it just adds a bit more tension. Does this mean that we've modulated to F major? Well, no, it doesn't, because in order for a modulation, which is a key change, to occur, it would need to be a sustained period of that in F major. But we don't stay in F major for very long, so it's used more as a passing chord to get us into another chord with a bit more certainty. So here I can just stay in the key of F, sorry, just use the chord F, chord 4, and then go to chord 1. If I wanted to, I could make it harmonically more interesting. So this is again just choosing using other chords that A is my important note. What 3 chords does A belong in? Well, it belongs in D minor, chord 2, F major, chord 4, and A minor, chord 6. Now, what's happening there? Here we have what we call a suspension. Now, a suspension has 3 things. It's prepared, there's a dissonance, and there's a resolution. So the preparation is here, in this E minor 7th chord. Then we have the dissonance, because what we might call a 4-3, 1, 2, 3, 4, resolving to a 3. Although we've got a double suspension here, because we've also got 2 to the 1, or you might call it a 9 to the 8 if you want to count it from there. So that's what's happening there. And then this time we can go to the major, which you might think sounds a bit funny, but if we think about what chord comes next, a D minor chord, well that's the one that I've chosen, then we think, okay, well what's the dominant 7th of D minor? So I'll go to my 5th note, and then I have a C sharp. So it makes some sort of sense. To there. Okay, so what's happening there? Quite a lot harmonically is going on there. So we have G major. I could have just stayed, and then there's my dominant 7th into the key of C. However, I've got all of this movement, this chromatic line in the bass. So what's happening here? So all I'm doing is what we call an imperfect cadence. So I'm having my chord 5, and you're expecting chord 1. However, I don't give that to you. I go up a step to chord 6. This is what we call an interrupted cadence. It subverts your expectations, or deceives your expectations. And in order to get to my A minor chord, once again, I can use the power of the dominant to the tonic. I think, okay, if this is my tonic, what's my dominant chord? Here it is, E major with that 7th. So what's happening really is this, except here I use an inversion to make the voice leading smoother, rather than I go and that's the same as or 5-1, and then what's happening here? This is just anticipating this chord, which I know doesn't sound like like what comes next, but it is. So here we have a dominant 7th in the key of G. So my G major scale, the dominant 7th, resolving there. Once again in an inversion, and then what often we call, or ABRSM likes to call 1C 5-1, which resolves to 1, chord 1. What is 1C? So chord 1, C major, first inversion we like to call 1B, second inversion we like to call 1C. And then this is a very common progression, 1C, chord 5, chord 1, or 1A. Okay, it doesn't matter what's in the right hand as long as the bass note has the root position. It's a root position chord. Some people call it 6-4-5-3 to 1 because it's 4 and 6 notes above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, dropping down to 5 and 3. So 1C, or then we can resolve and finish there. Once again, if I want to increase the harmonic rhythm, I can harmonize each note there, and then we get another sort of circle of fifths. There's a circle of fifths. If I want to drag it out a bit more, I can do an interrupted cadence and then repeat it. Or I could go the other way. This is an interrupted cadence, not as well known, where we go from 5 to 4. And then we can do our added minor fourth, parallel minor fourth, so just the fourth but in the minor key, which adds more tension, and then we get the resolution we're looking for. So what was the one I did at the very start? It was a type of altered interrupted cadence where I go from the flat 6 to the flat 7 to 1. Okay. Because you will notice that the flat 6 chord, so A flat major, C belongs in that, so it fits. And then I like the flat 7 because it's a sort of mixture of both a Plagal being 4 to 1, plus the perfect 5 to 1. So we get 4-1 and 5-1 at the same time. And then we can finish with a nice seventh or added note instead. So added notes just provide a bit more flavour to your chord rather than just a basic triad. You can always have a nice added second or ninth, once again depending on where you count it from. And once again. Sevenths are everywhere. So added seconds, added sixths, those will work well. But anyway, here's our cadence. Maybe I go to the 4, the minor 4th. Now once again, look at the spacing in the left hand. I've got an interval of a tenth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the fifth is in the middle. It just sounds a lot warmer. The C doesn't really need to be doubled, but if it's in the melody then we'll double it. But just listen to how bad it sounds. If I put the E down an octave, chords don't work down there, so spacing out works a lot better out here. So altogether, if I reharmonize it, this is what it sounds like.